o'clock. Well, after nearly 4 weeks occupying Parliament grounds, the anti-vaccine, anti-mandate protests actually ended violently earlier this week as fires were lit and clashes between protesters and police took place. Parliament grounds, though, are now cleared and the cleanup begins. So joining us now to have a talanoa about the extent of the damage and really how the city can move forward is none other than Wellington Mayor Andy Foster. With that, I say malole lane. Welcome to the show this morning.
Malole.
Yeah, thank you. Look, Andy, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.
I suppose most people on their minds and what they would like to ask you, though, is how did you actually feel about what took place between the protesters and actually the police in your city?
You're talking about the final day, and
it was sort of
some pretty ugly scenes. Yeah. Look, I mean, it was really sad that it came to that. We knew that there was some people who were in the protest group who were probably spoiling for a fight of some sort. I don't know what goes through people's mind that they want to do that kind of thing, but that was never going to be good. But one of the key things was to get as many of the sensible, the more moderate people away, get families away. So anything that we could do to reduce the number of people who were involved in that was a good thing.
I think about, of course, you're there. It's your city. You're seeing it firsthand unfolding in front of you, and like you sort of touched on, I think the voices of the actual people were lost of what the actual protest was about. Right? It was sort of overcome by other people's agendas, and you've obviously had time now to assess the whole thing. Your thoughts on just it overall, though?
Yeah, well, if you think about the sort of agendas that were there, I mean, there were a whole lot of different groups of people. Some who were very moderate, some who clearly were not, and there was some pretty unpleasant sort of motivations behind some of the people there as well. But for most of them, I think really it was all about mandates and the effects that mandates had on them. People made the choices they made for whatever reasons. I talked to a number of people, and they had concerns. I talked to one chap who said he was just in remission from cancer, and he'd heard that people, in remission from cancer haven't been vaccinated. It had an impact on. I don't know whether there's any data on that, but obviously that was something that he didn't feel he wanted to take that risk, and he was a professional person. So, there were a range of different stories and reasons, but I think that the key bit was the mandate and the impact that that has on some people.
And then obviously to be overshadowed by what happened literally on the sort of last day of the protest. You've seen the damage. What was the extent of the damage actually following the protest? Well,
look, really, what I would say is now is a time for healing, not just for the people involved. Obviously, we've got police officers physically who've been injured as well. But as part of that team of 5 million, we've got to bring ourselves back together again. And that's the other bit. I think it's taken an emotional feel of a bit of a house invasion, if you like. And people want to reclaim their city and they want that healing. And so there's been a beautiful outpouring of people wanting to say, can we get in and start helping with the cleanup and the restoration? And that's beautiful. We've got to work out how that happens. But there's a website, a big cleanup organised by a chap called Keith Ng. I've been in touch with him and said that I'm happy to come down there and help out. But we've got some of the worst of the cleanup has got to be done first by professionals. So that's being done at the moment by council staff and by contractors as well, and the parliamentary area and the police being involved in that. So that's going on at the moment. And then there's the healing for the businesses. I was just rung again by one of the business owners who I've been in touch with on a regular basis during this process, and obviously they want to be able to open again. Some of them in the Molesworth Street area, they actually can't open at the moment because it's still closed by police. But hopefully that will be lifted very soon. And I'd just say to Wellingtonians, let's come in and let's support those businesses, particularly in that Thornton area. But because of the COVID restrictions, it's an issue for the city as a whole, central city as a whole, anyway. Yeah. So we've been doing some work putting together a pandemic response package. We passed that council last week, making things like parking and regulatory fees cheaper, and then we're working on a reactivation plan, which is all about drawing people back into the city, giving people a reason to come, giving them some incentive to come, and we're working with the Minister of Finance to try and put a little package together that hopefully will say to people, come on back into Wellington, maybe not today, but maybe in a few weeks' time when the worst of Omicron's out. But if you feel safe to come in, let's do it now.
Nice. Is there any sort of collaboration though with the iwi there? Because I do feel like they felt quite
Yes.
strongly about,
Yep.
what had happened to their land. What's the conversation been like with that?
Yeah, look, I was through quite a lot of the last 3 weeks talking with members of iwi and about how could we try and broker something that actually worked and try and downscale the scale of the occupation, the impacts of the occupation. Ideally, it would have been great to actually see people walk out, a lot of people walk out. I mean, most probably did leave by the end, but would have been kind of nice to see a whole group of people go together and goes, right, we feel comfortable, at least we feel heard, and now we're all prepared to leave. But they did it in dribs and drabs. And I think the other bit, of course, is that feeling of the trampling of mana on both. There was a group of protesters who got into Pipitao Marae, which is very nearby, and then also just the mana of the whole area, which our mana whenua felt quite distressed about.
Any sort of maybe understanding of what the costs will look like to actually fix all the damages that have happened there?
Look, no, I think I don't think the cost for council is going to be too significant. It will be a cost. I mean, there's things like broken signs and a couple of lampposts got to be replaced and pavers have got to be fixed and those kind of things, and clean up. There's a bit of graffiti there as well, which needs to be removed. Most of it, I understand, is sort of pen graffiti rather than anything else.
Yeah.
So there's those kind of things. I do feel for the parliamentary ground staff. That's that will be a bit heartbreaking. The big cost in this, of course, is people. It's the time and the resource which has gone in from. I mean, the councils have been a small part player in this, but the police costs will be really significant. So that's where the cost lies, is in people and moving people around.
But that's the thing, though. What has the response been like from the Wellington community about what has actually taken place?
Oh, look, I think there was a growing feeling of frustration, growing feeling of distress about some of the behaviour that went on the fringes, if you like, of the protest. It's the stories of people being intimidated, being abused for just for wearing a mask. I went through on the second day of the protest, and most of the conversations, in fact, all the conversations I had were really pleasant conversations, just asking what people's backgrounds were and what brought them there. One guy, they did say, what are you doing wearing a mask? They don't work, that kind of thing. I said, well, look, I've got this. If this is about freedom, I've got the freedom to choose to wear a mask. Yeah, and that kind of shut him up. But I think there was that overall thing of, there were too many stories of bad behaviour, intimidation, supermarket workers feeling unsafe when some of the protesters came in, people going into shops without masks, and that people feeling unsafe about that from a COVID perspective too.
If you're tuning in, we're speaking with Wellington Mayor Andy Foster. Andy, would love to know, police of course have now begun their significant investigation into this. Will you closely be monitoring this or working with the police too?
Well, I think the police have obviously got, at the moment, the area is a crime scene, so they've got to do their work in that. I think they've probably got a lot of information already, because there's been cameras all over the place watching everything. But if you're thinking about investigation being an investigation or an inquiry into the whole thing, then I suspect I'll probably be more than interested in watching it. I suspect I'll probably be involved in getting in providing answers to whoever is doing the inquiry. I think there needs to be an inquiry, not just into how the protest was managed, ended, how it could have been dealt with differently, was it dealt with the right way, all of those sort of things. What the Parliament in this, what information was available at the front end, how did the issues that the protesters were concerned about play into the fact that it happened at all? What's happened around the rest of the country, and of course it's not resolved, and ultimately how we put ourselves all back together again.
Yeah, I mean, are you happy though with the response from the government following this?
Well, the government wasn't particularly evident throughout the process, and I guess that's one of the things that I think will be needed to be looked at is what was the role of the government and or actually the Parliament in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I do love the fact that it's all about the healing moving forward. What then would be, I suppose, maybe your key message to any of our listeners, especially to your people there in Wellington?
Oh, look, I think my key message is this has been a tough couple of years for COVID. This was insult to injury. It's really affected a lot of people. But now we need to pick ourselves up together. We need to back each other, support each other. That's our people, our businesses, our places, and come together in healing. And that's where we want to go. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're looking forward to reactivating our city as we come through the worst of Omicron, and drawing people back in again. And I think people just want, we're doing this on Zoom. I think we've probably all been zoomed out. And I think the ability to be able to come back together again, I hope soon, and put our arms around each other and say, we're all New Zealanders together, and build that beautiful sense of community that we have.
Beautiful. Look, Mayor, we thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate just having a little bit of an insight as to what happened. But moving forward, all the best to all your Wellingtonians and yourself there.
Thank you, Aggie. Really appreciate it.
Worries.
And all the best to you.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. That, of course,